All right, today we're gathering with Dorinda Medley and Kiki Monique, who are the co-hosts of Reality Checked on SiriusXM's Radio Andy, a daily show. I love both these women so much. We're already having fun before we even started recording. So
Yes.
they're just such a fun duo together. And Dorinda and Kiki, thank you so much for being here this morning. How are you?
So good. I mean, bright and early. I'm a morning person, but I'm
Me too.
also a night owl, which I think they say it's an exhausted pigeon is what I think
Oh,
it's.
really? So do you go to bed late?
I love to stay up late. I love being up when nobody else is. It just, I don't know, there's something like
Oh,
rebellious
so you
about
do
it.
both.
Yeah.
I'm if I'm home, I'm in bed by 9.
You're in bed by 9. Wait, so
Oh.
Kiki, do you not get much sleep?
I don't really, yeah, I'm one of those people.
Okay.
I like sleep
I need
makes
it.
me uncomfortable sometimes. Like I'll do it when I need to, but it's like I don't need to be in bed that much.
Sign of a genius.
Dorinda, how much sleep do
That's
you get every night? How much sleep do you
eight
need?
eight
Yeah,
hours solid every single night. And if I can, I'll slip in a nap during the day.
I love
I
that.
think people talk about health and beauty and tricks and trades and hacks. Let me tell you what a hack is. Don't get exhausted,
Hmm.
especially as a woman. I think it just shows on you. You like sleep is the youth serum.
So, Dorinda, you've had your radio show for quite some time now, right? Like how many years
Yes.
have you been on the radio, on Radio
Well, it
Andy?
started off with Make It Nice, which
Right.
was sort of like an advice sort of thing. And then I didn't do it during COVID, and then they brought it back for a while, and then I started doing reality checks. So I would say it's been off and on 4 or 5 years. But here's a fun fact: Kiki and I used to do Daily Mail TV together as co-hosts.
Oh, fun. When was that when you were on Rowan? When was that?
God,
Daily
I
Mail
think that was
TV.
like it was sometime. I think it was like 2021,
Okay,
Yeah.
so post
2022.
COVID.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Wow. And then Kiki, you were guest hosting sometimes with Dorinda, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, not with Dorinda, but they were
Oh,
doing sort of just like
got it.
guest,
Got it.
like weekly stints here while they were trying to, sort of like the Daily Show did. It was like, who do we want to be on Reality Checked? And so you get a
Mix
week
and
Yeah.
here, you
mingle.
get a week,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
What's so nice about it? Listen, it's great. It was great when I was doing it on my own, but it's the whole point of talking about reality and talking about topics and things is to meander through it with someone and to have
Yeah,
someone that may have a different opinion or different outlook. And our backgrounds are very different. I bring in sort of the fact that I was a reality star and I'm quite opinionated, and she brings back the fact that she's very intelligent, she's very engaged, she's involved. I mean, for God's sake, she literally went to where Shannon Bedore hit her car and got a piece of the wall. I mean, she's really in
At
it.
my
you're
playhouse.
on the ground. Yep.
I'm a surfacer, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm a commentary. And she can take apart a trial like nobody's business.
So how did you decide to make it a permanent duo? Like how
Well, it
did
wasn't our
Well, it
Oh,
wasn't
decision.
ours.
okay. Well,
That's
that's
above
kind
our
of
pay
flattering though.
grade.
But that's flattering to know that like they loved your chemistry as co-hosts so well to make it a permanent gig. I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah, no, I was happy too because I agree with Dorinda. Like having someone to talk through stuff with, yeah, and especially somebody who has insight that maybe you don't have, not being, in front of the camera. It's nice.
It's also nice is because, believe it or not, and not that I was nervous, but I always was like, oh, I got this hour. I got to really stay
Yeah,
engaged. And now I know that now I don't, now I just look forward to it because the flow is so easy. It's just like going to meet her for a coffee. Like, I
totally.
cannot believe now every day that it goes so fast. Do you feel that way, Kiki?
No, I was like, we need a 2 hour show now.
Yeah, because we don't even we're like, let's talk about Summer House, and then we'll talk about this, and then we'll talk about this. We don't even get through the first 10 minutes of Summer House. We're like, well, I guess the show's done.
I know.
Right.
I mean, we could spend like a week on Valley alone, just one
Yes.
episode.
I completely believe that. So if somebody were to tune into Reality Checked anytime this week, is it you two talking about the latest Bravo shows? Is it broader pop culture? Tell the listener sort of what they would expect out of an episode, an hour of you two gabbing.
I think every day, we do watch a lot of the same shows. We are still, because we're new, we're trying to figure out like what are the things that our audience is interested in. But we're lucky right now because we have some really good shows on the air. So we're usually recapping, but obviously with our hot takes and spins on it, not just a full, just like a telling you what it is.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
some people, they don't have time to watch the shows. So we do want to give them like an idea of like, here's what's happening, since you didn't get a time to watch, and like here are the highlights highlights of what's on, Bravo. We watch some TLC shows. We love 90 Day Fiance.
Okay.
I watch a lot of random stuff too. So it's like sometimes I like to just introduce like Dorinda. Like, is this something you would even want to watch? Because I watch some weird stuff.
And what's so interesting is that the shows haven't even become the full focus. Now that we have the after shows, we have the Watch What Happens Live. We have all this great these influencers that feed us tidbits that it meanders, into.
Totally.
Yeah, it becomes buildable. Like we're like, oh well, this happened on the show, but in the after show they said this, and when she was on Watch What Happens Live,
I'm finding out with The Valley in particular, because one episode of The Valley has so much information packed into it, so much backstory, so much they really bear it all, and like I admire that. But then you have the after show, which is 45 minutes long, and they're all like telling you everything, any question you had about any particular story. They're answering it without being pushed, and like,
well, it changes your opinion. I've sort of watched the show and then watched the after show and then watch What Happens Live, which just happened this week with The Valley. And I was I was switching what my feelings were while I was watching the show.
And I feel like, Dorinda, I'm curious what your perspective on that is, because I feel like, especially on The Valley, I don't know if it's like necessarily breaking down the fourth wall, but they are definitely like, they don't seem to have many constraints in terms of what they're talking about with that group. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing we were talking about yesterday that I really believe, the thing that is so great about The Valley is we've seen them kind of grow up on TV. So we've already knew these characters. So we see all them as, waiters and waitresses or whatever. Some of them we didn't, but like Kristen kind of left and she was, not defeated, but kind of left on sort of a bad note. And now all of a sudden she's a woman that kind of is actually, I think, the voice of reason for The Valley.
I
Who would
agree.
have thunk it, right?
I know.
And so we know the backstory, and they're very engaging because I think a little bit like old Real Housewives, you feel like you're in their living room with you. You feel like they're in their kitchen. Like you feel like you're almost in real time with them. And that to me is what the authenticity of it just makes it very attractive to me.
Yeah, I think when like every other show, everyone's getting glam squads for every scene.
No.
It's like there's something really refreshing about seeing them in yoga pants and ripped t-shirts.
Correct.
It really is.
Yeah.
Dorinda, as somebody who's been in reality TV for so long, how does that affect how you watch a show? Like, how the sausage is made so well. How does that affect how you watch it?
It definitely has an effect, and I'll comment on that. I'm like, I kind of know what was happening here in the setup, and it definitely affects it. But New York was again unlike kind of some of the other shows. We really were mic'd and put in, and we never got interrupted. They knew. I remember once I was just in London and I was having dinner with a producer. And there was another producer there, and we were talking about filming, and he said, when my first day on Real Housewives of New York, Dorinda and Ramona were sitting and having lunch, and I stepped in to give him some advice, and Dorinda turned to me and said, "What the fuck are you doing? Are you the new housewife?" And Ramona's like, "That's it. The scene's over. I can't film anymore. It's done. You can't interrupt us." I mean, so we really weren't scripted at all. But I do know I can see the alliances happening because it's really like playing chess.
Yeah. Well, that's when I think about like the traders, it's like the gamers versus the non-gamers, but it's like Bravo shows are games too, in a way. And like, yes. I've always thought that.
The thing about the people from the Survivor show, they're like DEFCON 1. Totally. I mean, you don't even think they're eating, drinking, or breathing. They just come in like Transformers. You know what I mean?
Athletes, yeah.
So that was a big surprise because I wanted to make it a little more social,
right,
and fun, but clearly, and interactive, and but you see how that worked out for me. I was back on a plane home.
And listen, I was the most upset of the bunch. I was like, we didn't get Dorinda one round table. Come on, that would have been. So sad. Kiki, I'm curious for you because we've been on Sheena's podcast together. She's a good friend of yours. You know some of the other Bravo stars. Yeah. And it's something that I consider all the time, having a podcast and talking about Bravo online is like, people want your opinion and they want you to share what you really think. But then also, some of these people and you've seen a little bit inside of the belly of the beast. And how do you sort of balance those two things? Because they can be in conflict with one another a lot. And that's something that I deal with every single day.
Absolutely. I actually like asked, I think Danny Pellegrino, when we were on the set of The Valley, they had that
Yeah, yeah,
activation in
yeah.
the van. And I was asking, like, yeah, how do you stay sort of so neutral? Because it is hard because you want to give your opinion. And people do, I think, regardless of what happened, they'll think I'm biased any way, shape, or
Same.
form if they see me hanging out. But the reality is like, once you get to know people and know their true personality, and then you start understanding sort of like maybe how they are edited on a show. Look, that is their real personality, but what they are portraying on the show isn't what the audience may see. You just kind of have to just say like, I'm not going to try to defend that because I do know the real person. So I do think it makes it easier. But I think at the end of the day, if I ever saw someone that I've gotten close with, making wrong, look, I love Janet. I do. And we talk about this. We actually talk about this in Reality Check. Dorinda is not a Janet fan on The Valley. I know Janet. I think she's great, but I also understand she's having a rough season. I get why the audience is not relating to her. And so, I was like, look, that Dave and Buster episode, like, I feel like maybe you'll
It
see the
helped
real
her a
her in
bit.
there. But
Right.
I get it. I get why people aren't, reacting, positively towards
But
her.
here's
So
what,
I have
here's
to
something
address that.
I would say on the show. There is, believe me, reality stars do know that. They know, like, if you're good friends with so and so, it's going to help you in how they speak of you. It's a little mafia. It's a little bit
Mm,
like wink, wink, hug, hug. Here's $100. Get me a good seat. I
got
don't
it.
say 100%, but that if you're very good friends with someone, they're probably not going to dive in. And I saw a lot of that after I was put on pause. There were certain, people some were great, some were terrible, people were outraged. But my team that I've been working with, but it goes both ways, I think, because you got to remember a lot of times when you are very close to these people, you also have to be good to them as well.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
you have to, the hand shakes both ways.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
and because at the end of the day, like when you do become close to these people, you also want them to have a career. So you want them to stay on
Yes.
television. So it's not like you're not going to try to down talk them because you're like, I do want you to be on the TV
Yes.
because I
And
like you. I want you to have a
I was
job.
famous for, I could never keep a secret on Bravo TV. I mean, literally someone would say to me, "Don't tell, I'm telling you this," and I'd run upstairs and tell. I mean, they called me Dorinda Medler. I was great at that. I finally said in a scene, "Don't tell me a secret because I will tell." Okay, I just can't help myself. So, I'm good. Nothing ever
No, but
damaging, I hope, but
that's what makes a good show. That's what makes a good reality star in Dorinda Medley. I love that. So let's talk about the Valley for a second because I feel like I just feel like we've been hit with so much information in 3 episodes that it's hard to keep track of all of it, honestly. But the central thing to me is the Jackson Brittany of it all, and that I feel like that one scene at the end of that episode. I haven't stopped thinking about that. Like that to me is just like one of the most real dark scenes that I remember seeing on Bravo in quite some time. What were like your gut reactions to seeing that play out?
well, I thought it was interesting because you could see that Brittany had just dropped the veil. She's like, "I'm done. I'm
Hmm.
done holding up the image. I'm going to ruin you personally, professionally." And you could see on his face, it wasn't just her. You
Mm,
saw when he kept trying to escape, he's like, "Oh my God, she's really doing this." And we see days after it, the effect it's had on Jax's career. They've canceled the shows. People are running from his brand. So she knew she was going to do that when that happened.
right.
You can't say that kind of stuff without it landing with, all of us are about our image, our brands, our all this. So I found it fascinating when she was going through it. I was like, "Oh my God, did she just say that?" Like I had to watch it 2 or 3 times.
And he's sort of talking to producers off camera a little bit, and like
He was in a panic because he's thinking, "Did she just say the word cocaine? I
right.
need to get," she's already thinking, "I need to get that edited out. Did she say this? I need to, he knows that 6 months from now, that's not going to land well with the audience or brands or things he's trying to do."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He knew it.
Kiki, what did you think about it?
No, I mean, it was the
Oh,
same
that
way. I
was
mean, because a lot of the like things that we had been thinking about were sort of exposed in that scene where it was just
Right.
like, you're going to get fired from your job. And we knew that
Mm-hmm.
that job was this job.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, what stood out, because I talk about this too, like as someone who was in a relationship with someone who had substance use issues, just watching it, you kind of get taken back to that time and you realize like, how much she had to be going through, because it takes a lot to get to the point where you do expose, because when she loves Jax, you can tell she's
Yeah.
still in love with this man, and to expose someone that you still love, that is the father of your child, you have to be at your breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't
Mm-hmm.
even imagine what we didn't see on camera that was happening for her to finally just be like, I don't care if you lose your job, I don't care if you go to jail, it's coming out and I'm going to say it on camera.
We did say something yesterday. It was interesting. Some caller brought up a good point because she kind of did a lot of stuff at Watch What Happens Live and then kept going in the after show. And I did say she does have to pull back because there is a child involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think she's running with it, and I get it because there's freedom in that. It's like holding your breath too long underwater, and then when it's finally out, you just want to breathe and breathe and
Scream.
breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now she has to pull back because that little boy's going to grow up, and that lives forever.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, the most important thing that Brittany's got to really understand is reality TV will go, but that will live on forever. So
Right.
I hope she pivots that a little bit
Mm-hmm.
during the season
Yeah.
and
I feel like
becomes a support system.
we're seeing that also sort of play out with Jesse and Michelle too, where like it seems like Jesse's sort of pulling back publicly now that everything's airing, and what he said about Michelle and the claim in the when the boys text. Like I saw a clip of him somewhere saying like, I regret sending that message, like it's going to affect my daughter. And so there's sort of a mirror happening between, I think, those two situations, but to different levels. But
It's really interesting because it's happened to me too. There's something, I don't know what it is. There should be a psychological study on it. There's something about when the camera comes on, especially for me, I just want to spill the truth.
yeah.
I mean, I even did it at the reunion for Traders. I was talking to Andy a little bit before, and he was like, this is going to be an easy reunion for you. I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm going to sit in the back. I am not going to say a word. I wasn't even there. I have nothing to say, Andy. I'm going to sit back. Of course, I see the cameras come on, and I'm right there. So there is something psychological that happens when the cameras come on.
Do you think it's partially because I wonder if it's partially because that other people might also like be feeling the same way, so, that are also on camera with you, and like in some ways do you want to like beat them to the punch almost in terms of like maybe saying something, or like is that part of it at all, Dorinda, do you think, or no?
I just think that when I watch, when I'm sitting there and I'm watching someone say something, it actually happened yesterday in a meeting that we were doing, and I know it's not true. I naturally am very irked by it and I'm outspoken, but when I'm on camera, I'm like, I just feel this need to call them out.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is. I'm like, that's not true. And let me get it's always about my side of the story. Like
Yeah.
I gotta get to the audience my side of the story, because
Yeah.
when the narrative starts to be like, oh, well, I'm sorry, or you're angry, or I'm like, okay, now we got to clean that up. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
let's clean it up. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I think that the camera allows you to do that, because you can change the narrative with a couple good sentences.
Totally. What would obviously the men on Roni were around and filmed some, depending on the season, but on the Valley, obviously it's a co-ed cast fully. And I'm curious, how do you think that your experience would have been different, or like would you have liked if like men were full-time cast members on a show with you?
No,
No.
because I don't want men being full-time cast members anywhere in my life. Okay, period, done. Uh,
Period.
but that's a very New York woman thing. New York
Yeah,
women are very, very.
totally.
Jersey, you see a lot of that coupling. Dallas, the Valley. Less and less Beverly Hills, which is interesting. But
Mm-hmm.
New York is really, we're not those type of wives. Like your husband goes to work at 5:30 in the morning, they come home at 8 at night, and you are roaming the streets. You're
Mm-hmm.
you're getting to Bergdorf's as soon as you can to buy a little something. Go, run the kids, be engaged, and then you kind of come back together. We're just not. I just don't think New York women are like that. And in my group anyway.
Yeah,
You know what I
I,
mean?
I I believe that. Okay, so speaking of, what did you two think of Love Hotel, the premiere?
Oh, so
Loved it.
good. Yeah, I thought it was like,
Loved.
I'm not a big dating show person, but like, I love dating shows where there's multiple people going after multiple people, and also when the woman is in charge. Like, that's when I can
Yes.
be into it. And so I'm very much into this.
It's
No, Love
like,
Hotel is incredible, and I was very skeptical about the people they chose. I did. I knew
why?
Luann would be great. I knew Ashley would be great. I didn't get Shannon because I don't think of Shannon as a dater. And I don't think of Giselle as a dater, even though she's so stunningly beautiful.
Right.
But they really surprised me. The dynamics are really good and great, and I'm enjoying Shannon on it, and I'm enjoying Luann and the kind of what they bring to the table. Because what's great is when you have a really good reality star and they bring exactly who you think they're going to be and cross it over into
Right.
a place. You're like, oh,
There's
she's
something
even
confirming about that.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the
I feel
fact that
like,
Shannon cried on her first date, I'm like, well, there you go,
of
of
course,
course.
done. Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's giving like a little bit of Girls Trip, Golden Bachelorette with some Love Island. Like it's a good combo of things that we're sort
Hmm.
of familiar with. And I think with Giselle, I agree. Like I don't think of Giselle necessarily as somebody we see dating all the time on Potomac, but like I feel like we see a slightly more like vulnerable, softer side to Giselle in these little moments on Love Hotel, which
Yes.
I'm excited to see more of, you know?
I think they should run with this and do it every year
Yeah,
Totally.
with
for
different
sure.
housewives.
Well, Sonia said that she was asked to do it, but she said no because she had a boyfriend, but that she doesn't have anymore or something.
Okay.
I think that was
That's
an
your
answer
response.
without getting an answer.
Sure. I also heard she was asked to do traders. Yeah. Okay.
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 She said she said on Watch What Happens Live she's not in contact with you. Is that accurate? You guys don't talk really?
She just, I don't think so. To be honest with you, Sonia doesn't really talk to anyone. Sonia's
Right.
in her own world. So
Okay.
that, I mean, she doesn't, I don't think she's talked to Ramona or Luann. I think that narrative changes when she's around us. But
Sure.
we, you can text Sonia and she doesn't text back for weeks on
Yeah.
end.
Got it.
So, I think she's done, so I don't think that's just a me thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think she's just, even
In her
when we
own
used to
world.
not film, to tell you the truth, she wasn't in contact. And
Mm.
that's a lot.
Mm. Yeah, that's
But my
interesting.
main people, like I'm in, Luann and I have like a coffee once a week, and
Totally.
so whenever Ramona's in town, I'm in town. But no, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think any of
Mm-hmm.
us really communicate
Yeah.
with each other that much.
I want to ask you both about Summer House because for me, I'm loving the season of Summer House. I think it's great, and but I do feel like this sort of tension continuing to build in terms of like the long-standing cast members are people that a lot of people are so invested in. We spent 9 years with them, but they're kind of like rubbing up against the premise of the show in a way of like a party house in the Hamptons. And I'm curious what both of you think should be done or what Bravo would do to sort of keep them in the fold. Like, do we get a sort of the valley for New York? Do we just like totally clean house on Summer House? Like, what do you think about that? Because I feel like the investment in talent is so valuable for Bravo.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I was talking to Dorinda about this yesterday because I was mentioning how, Johnny Bananas was saying people who are invested like in something like the challenge, we want to see those people. We want to see the
Right.
CTs, the Johnny Bananas, and those people. And I was saying, the same with like OG Roni, we want to see those people. And that's
Totally.
how we feel about Summer House. It's like we want to see those people. Is it, we create something new around them that's, still just another version, but they've gone into something else so that you can leave Summer House to be what it's meant to be? Sure, because yeah, we still love those people and we want to see them continue on. At least I think I
Yeah.
do.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. Do you find that the audience, and I'm just asking this, and I would love to get your take on it, and Kiki say, people are finding it less interesting in investing in new people?
Yeah, I think it's like if you really think about it, other than the Valley, the latest new Bravo show to really hit and stay around was Summer House. Like they're really like it's hard for them to break a new show, partially because I
But
don't think
even
they
when they add to the cast, like that's why Bose
yeah,
to me was
absolutely.
so incredible because she came on. Oh, I felt like when I came on, people just seamlessly accepted me, right? And it was
Hmm.
like, there we go, which was great. And obviously, a lot of it had to do with the fact that I knew all the girls and was in the background. But I felt like that was I thought when Bose came on, I thought, oh, okay, for the first time in a long time, I felt like, oh, okay, they got it right. Like
Yeah,
this one,
yeah.
I think this one's gonna stay for
Well,
sure.
that's why I think Jesse and West on Summer House last season were such a good addition because I think that at least a lot of like younger
Yeah.
female viewers like got really attached to them really quickly, and like that to me like they could signal sort of like what a new era of Summer House they could lead that basically in my mind. But like
Hmm.
you're right, it's really hard for them to break new people. It is.
Well, no, more so than it used to be. Like it used to be easier to bring people and bring, and But I find that a little more. It's so funny. Jesse and Wes were on with us, and at the end of it, we were all convinced that Jesse was what 42.
Yeah. He's an old soul.
He texted me and he's like, "I'm 31."
I also think a lot of the like casting is harder now than it was then because social media plays such
Yeah.
a big part in it. And you have these, networks who are like, oh, we have to find someone who has, at least 300,000 followers. Doesn't matter if they have a personality though. And it's like, that's not how the casting used to be. I do think Summer House does feel a little more organic because, they do say that, oh, I knew this person through, XYZ for any reason. So there is more of a
And I
connection
think they
there.
hang out off camera. I mean, I think
Yeah.
they, and that's how it was. A lot of these shows, I don't think they have. Even Bryn said in this recent interview she did podcast when the I can't even think of the guy's name, asked her among other many other questions how she got casted. She said they dropped into her DMs. To me that was so
Yeah.
wild
That's
because
not how.
that was wild to me because I had Ramona and Luann calling to make sure every year calling to ask
Referral.
me, and I had lunch and this that. So, but I had a lunch and they said, okay, I think you should be on. But it was really because all the girls had pushed me into it. I was amazed when she said that they dropped into my DM.
And that's not organic at all. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing. And I also think that the investment in people is actually sort of showing itself a little bit in the Kristen and Janet divide a lot, because I think that there's a lot of, the viewership has invested so much time in Kristen, who's like made this big comeback, and like they're protective of her in some ways. And obviously there's other things that play into why people don't like Janet, but I think that's actually a pretty
Why
big
do you
driving
think
force.
people don't like Janet? What's your opinion? I'd love your take on it. Because I'm not a bit, I don't dislike her, but I'm like, she's like vanilla. Like if I were at Baskin and Robbins, she's the vanilla ice cream. I'm like, I can have it, but
Sure.
I'd
I
rather have the
think
Rocky Road or strawberry.
I think that she came for the wrong person in Kristen for the first season, and I think that maybe she thought it would land differently, perhaps. And I think, yeah, to me, actually, it's a really big factor of it. And I don't know Kiki, what do you think?
I think it's a combination of people were so like gung ho for wanting to cheer on Kristen no matter what. Cause also we kind of knew real time what was happening with Kristen,
Sure.
right? Like, and so people were excited about that. So I think it's a combination of that combined with, again, I'm always in the comment section. I'm always paying attention. Things that happen off air that weren't
Oh, yeah.
put on air that created a drama that the audience didn't see. And so again, this is the benefit of being friends because you listen to the side and you're like, okay, I understand why this would make you mad. The audience isn't seeing that, but I don't know how you're going to get to make them see that because it's just not going to happen.
There's also the narrative that there's this like theory online that she was a fan of Vanderpump Rules that like latched onto the group basically, and that's a theory that I see people keep talking about.
I feel like, again, I think I take a bit offense to that only because I consider myself a fan, right? I'm a fan who's now become like a media reporter, and I do that. And as we go further and further into reality TV, all these people on TV are going to be fans because I'm sorry, you're not going to find people who are not watching reality TV. It's going to be very rare. So everyone's going to be a fan.
Why is that a bad thing? Like, I don't understand why I don't buy into this, what people deem as bad. I mean,
I agree.
like someone said, someone the other day was like, oh, and she was selling her clothes on Poshmark. I'm like, I sell my clothes on Poshmark under my own name. And please go to it right now.
$20 is $20.
Sold out, but like, when did this become a bad thing? Like, Pete, like, why is that a bad thing? I would want someone that is a fan and wants to. Just because you're a fan doesn't mean you don't know the group or you wouldn't fit in. You know who's the breakout star for me this year?
Who?
Luke.
Interesting.
Can you explain why?
I'm kind of falling in love with Luke.
Okay.
Because I just think he's calm, cool, and collected.
Right.
We're finally getting it. He's very good looking. I love the whole Santa Claus thing going on, the lumberjack thing going on.
A young Santa Claus.
Yeah, he's like a real man, and he really stands up for Kristen. I think he's created stability, and we're starting to hear his voice a little bit. He's like, I think he's helped Kristen be like the voice of reason. I thought he did a great job on Watch What Happens Live the other night.
That's a good point. Yeah, him and Brittany were an interesting duo on Watch What Happens Live. Him carrying the information that Danny shared with him to write back to the women.
Beautifully done. I felt like
pro.
DM something.
Yeah.
Beautifully
Totally.
executed.
Totally. Uh-huh. Natural. Very, very authentic. Um, Last thing about the sort of the summer house world, Paige and Craig, I'm curious sort of what you've made. She was on Watch What Happens Live last week, 2 weeks ago, and that was we sort of I feel like it sort of quelled some of the energy around it. Like it was a pretty fiery situation there for a while. What do you guys make of where did you land in that breakup?
Ne-
I didn't think they were suited for each other. I think that it was a great decision. I think they're both going to live very happy,
Hmm.
prosperous lives. But I think it's like a lot of relationships that they have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they were great for that period. Remember, they're very
Absolutely.
young. You
Hmm.
know, who I was at 26 was such a different person at 31. And Paige is a city girl that wants to be successful and run the
Hmm.
streets and, look at what she's done. And Greg clearly wants to settle down and have babies. Both are great. And I think both will do very well and look back at this relationship eventually and say, I feel bad that there's any hate around it because I
Yeah.
think they really do care for each other and
I
like
think
each
so
other.
too. And I think that the people around them on their shows sort of fan the flames a lot when they would go out and watch What Happens Live and
yeah.
Austin and Pat and they would like
I think that like
yeah,
that breakup could have ended way more amicably if it hadn't been so fanned
I
online
know.
because I really do
Yes.
think that Paige was trying to bow out gracefully, say it was a mutual decision to not embarrass Craig, but then it was like I don't know, everyone around them kept talking and yeah.
And as we saw during the season of Southern Charm, followed by the Summer House we're watching,
Hmm.
she was actually trying to give this, like, as a woman, I was like, oh, that girl is not, like, that girl is phasing out. Like,
Yeah.
any woman that hasn't seen a thing is like, I have a stomach ache, means I don't want to sleep with you tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? With those, because usually you can have a stomach ache, headache, migraine, and
yeah.
broken leg. When you see your man on the weekend, you're like, get on over here. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Uh-huh.
I think Craig ignored the signs a little bit because
Me
he
too.
wanted
Yeah.
it
He had tunnel
so
vision.
badly.
Tunnel
He was
vision. Yeah.
so invested, but
Yeah.
he couldn't get
Yeah.
uninvested and see the signs.
Yeah. And
Because
I'm
he's a
fine.
nice guy and
I
she's a
agree.
nice girl.
Yeah, they're both really good people, I think. And I think
Yeah.
that it's bringing out some interesting, like, just, I don't know. These things
I
bring
did
out the
like
worst
when
in
she
people
called
sometimes.
what's her name a bitch. She confirmed that she
You
thought
did
she
or
Oh,
was.
didn't?
Pat.
You did or
Yeah.
did not?
I did not. I thought that was a little bit of a misstep, and I think she regretted it as soon as it fell out of her mouth because Pat Archall is loved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she is
she's
the
sort of
woman
the
from. She
stateswoman.
is the woman from White Lotus. They
Right.
modeled the woman, Posey Parker after her. I'm
Sure.
convinced.
I wanted to get your thoughts on Beverly Hills was just wrapped because I feel like that show, we've seen on Housewives on various franchises, they've done this sort of like quasi reboot treatment on Atlanta, on OC, a little bit on Potomac, honestly. And I think that some people sort of want that for Beverly Hills now. They kind of feel like it's a little bit stuck in the mud. What do you two think now that the season's over and Garcelle's out? Like, where do you hope it goes?
Yeah, it's interesting because Beverly Hills every year starts off so strong. I get so excited. And then, like, about midway through, I'm like, oh, this is sort of like falling flat. But then they always have a really good reunion.
Hmm.
And so I'm kind of like, what is the element that's missing? And I'm realizing the reason it falls flat is because certain stories are maybe not being told. I think that those women do tell a lot. I do like people who say Kyle Richards doesn't, she does expose a lot, but there are huge parts of her life that are very public that she doesn't discuss. So I think that's when we get into these places where you have a Garcelle who would ask those questions. So if we don't have that going into next season, I do worry about that because you do need that person who's going to drum that up.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you end up falling flat.
And that's why it's going to be interesting to see where Sutton lands next year or how because Sutton, like it or not, she did ask the questions we wanted
Exactly.
to hear.
Totally.
So
Hmm.
every cast needs the person that pushes the storyline and calls out because a lot of people sit back and be like,
Hmm.
and then it
Especially in
falls
Beverly Hills.
flat,
Hmm.
right? So they definitely have to, and I hope they haven't quelled that in her because there's sometimes you get so much hate that you're like, okay, I'm just going to be a different person.
Mm. What do you
Why
think
am
of
I
the?
doing this when so and so over there is just sitting back and not doing a
Yeah,
thing?
it's like, well, yeah. Why am I like basically? Yeah,
Villain,
exactly. Yeah,
and then you end up getting the villain edit, and
absolutely. Yeah,
And so I hope that doesn't change her. It'll be interesting to see. I'm very sad Garcelle's not on.
I
I
know. I
liked
love Garcelle.
Garcelle. I always say that a cast is like, making a cake. Every ingredient, it doesn't have to be the same. But even in our old cast, Carol was very different than me, was very different than Bethany. Ramona had her own thing, but together the cake came together.
Exactly.
So I think that it's going to be interesting, because Garcelle brought an ingredient that we liked seeing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and now we have Erica Jane that there's, sort of allegedly might have been, demoted down to a
Demoted.
friend, she's enough for me just to watch her dress.
Yeah, I
And
think that
I
she's
get what the
become.
audience says. She
I
doesn't show
know.
this, she doesn't show that. But I think that would be a big loss.
I agree. I think she's kind of become quasi essential to that show. And one idea that I've been kicking around with certain guests is, Kyle's been on that show for a very long time, and as you said, Kiki, there's like a lot of big things happening in her life that I feel like we aren't getting full stories, and maybe that's because she hasn't even made the full decision for herself. And I'm curious, and Dorinda, you have a good perspective on this. Like, I am becoming more and more convinced that taking a season off for people is like a really
I
good
agree.
idea. Like, kind of being guaranteed to come back, but just like 1 year away. Like, no pressure for
But
cameras and
even further
storyline,
than that,
and make some big decisions.
I don't even think it's something they need to decide. I think she might be. I don't know this for a fact. Haven't heard anything, but knowing kind of her a little bit, and I love Kyle. She's
Me
like one of my
too.
favorite people. Is that it would do her well, both personally and professionally, to just say, "Listen, Andy, I just need to sort out my shit." And I'll
Exactly.
take a year off. And once I get things, because I have to do some very uncomfortable stuff because the family's breaking up and I have many tentacles that have to be addressed. And then once that's done, I'm going to come back and talk about it. But I don't want to start talking about things that I don't even know if we're going to do or how it's going to turn out.
Exactly. I
Even
think,
for legal reasons, by the way. A
yeah.
divorce is very legal, and we don't know how that divorce is going
Hmm.
to financially, legally
Yeah,
work
yeah, and
out.
I just think, and I think that Kyle, and this is not a criticism, I think that she worries a lot about what people are saying online and sort of what the
Yeah.
fans are thinking. And like, if she takes herself out of that just for a year, like that would do her. I just think that would do her wonders, and I mean that just like it's something that would
And I wouldn't
benefit
be
her.
surprised if she feels that way.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Listen, it is a lot. I was on for 6 years, and listen, they put me on pause, and they had to take me off dragging and quit, kicking. I wasn't one of these ones that they were like, are you, how do you feel about leaving? I wasn't like, well, I just have big projects. I was like, I don't want to
Don't make
go.
me. Well,
They were like, can you
and I
tone it
understand
down
that.
and just be like, it was a mutual decision? I'm like, but it's not.
Yeah. Kiki, do you feel the
Yeah.
same way about Kyle?
Yeah, like I sometimes think though it would be really hard for her to do because she legit is the like the only OG who is still standing. And I don't know, sometimes when you have that, it's very hard to like walk away,
I
even if you're
know.
guaranteed a spot back, because you just kind of want to hold that crown, right? And just say like,
Hmm.
I've been here, and I'm the queen. And so I
You
think
don't
that
want to
would
break
be,
the rhythm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
I
it would
feel
be
like
very
Tamara's
difficult.
like that too, a little bit. Like I
Yeah,
think
I
sometimes
agree.
Tamara would like to sometimes take, but she just knows, because also too, with reality TV, things change so quickly, and it really is like the old saying: if it doesn't happen on reality TV, it doesn't happen. So you would hate to go away and then
Mm.
have them say, "Actually, it's doing so well without you."
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
totally.
I
And,
mean, we work in
and that's an
entertainment.
expensive
Like,
Yeah.
paycheck.
if I like was gone for a week and then they brought someone in for Dorinda and then they were like, actually, this
Yeah.
duo sounds, I'd be like, no, wait,
Well, it
no, I
kind
want
of
my job
happened, didn't it,
back.
with us, right? It kind of happened. We did a show together and like, oh, you guys look great. You know what I mean? So let's make this a duo.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
TV moves fast.
totally.
What is a day in real life, a day in reality world is like a month in other
Mm.
people's lives.
Right, right.
Yeah.
We have just a few more minutes here. Dorinda, a couple quick questions for you. There's this rumored show about Bluestone Manor. Is there
Yes.
what's the latest on that
We're
you're
working
allowed to
on it. It's
say?
been, we're working on it. I'm praying. I think we need one more go at Bluestone Manor.
Oh,
I
oh,
think people miss
one
it.
more, 10
I
more.
think I think people miss it. It's nostalgia. I call it the Disneyland of Bravo. Do you
Mm,
know to this day, especially like when I put up that 27-foot pumpkin, I have buses of people that just sit in front of my gate to look
I
at it.
believe
So
that.
like there's a mad mystery about behind the gates, and I think we need to do it a couple more times, and we're working on it, and how
Good.
we would do it, and
Good.
trying to get it down. I've just been, to tell you the truth, I've been so busy with like getting murdered at traders. yeah, doing a couple other projects I'm working on. I'm trying to get another book out. And then I've really leaned into doing the series. I really have leaned into doing the Series XM thing because I just find
Yeah,
it sort
it's fun.
of not just it being with Kiki and the show and what we do, but there's been a lot of growth for me in being in radio. It's really been a confidence builder, and I've really taken away a lot, and it's created a camaraderie. Like I look forward to it. So it's been a nice settling.
Yeah.
In my 60s, I'm like, this is a good gig.
It's
You
a
know
great
what I mean?
gig. Yeah. Uh-huh. If
A
they asked,
good gig.
people obviously think that you were eliminated too early on the Traders. Would you go back if they asked you to come back for another go?
Yeah, I would love. Listen, I just want to make it to the round table once.
Yes.
Just
Okay.
just once.
Yes.
I want to have that. I want to wear the clothes, tear apart people's answers. And then even if they get rid of me, I want that departure moment. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, give that little
Yes. We
speech. I know
should
that you would
we
do a
should
good speech.
manifest it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Last thing, I think that you two should have a reality checked party of some sort, like maybe a launch party, celebrate the
At
program, and
Bluestone
then
Manor.
at Bluestone Manor, and then you DJ, Dorinda.
Yes,
Yes.
Dorinda is she's a good DJ.
I want to
Then we
go to
had
one of your DJ gigs.
she
Oh,
had a
I'm
playlist
doing
on the
one.
other
I'm doing
day.
one and a half this Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, fun.
We had a playlist on the show the other day, and she was like, "Oh, Kiki," because she thought it was me, and I was like, "This is your playlist." She's like, "Oh, it was someone
No,
good. I
I'm
knew."
listening to the music. I'm like, Kiki's got some damn good music.
I
And she
love
goes,
it.
"Survive." Then I kept saying to Kiki, I love this song.
It was
Wow, look
amazing.
at you, DJ. Finally, about the third, it didn't make it. She did tell me to the third segment. She goes, this is not my playlist. It's yours. I was like, really? Because I just give
Complimenting
them all
yourself.
my playlists to work off of.
That is amazing. Oh my God. Well, Kiki and Dorinda, obviously this past 45 minutes has been a joy, and people need to tune into Reality Checked every single day. What time is Reality Checked every day on Radio Andy? What time?
It's on
4 o'clock
4 p.m.
Monday. Yeah, 4 p.m. Monday through Thursdays.
Okay. Well, again, amazing duo right here. I'm excited to see what the rest of this year has in store for both of you, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank
Truly.
you.
Yeah, thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Bye.
I want to gab.